It's Reed Young for transformpoker.com, and today I'm going to be going over a 6-max hand that one of my friends played, and he sent me for a review. So we're playing four-handed here, and the subject in question is constructing a flop 3-betting range. So I think this is going to be something that a lot of you guys enjoy, and I've definitely gotten a bunch of questions about the actual spot. So yeah, before we get into the action here, you guys will notice I'm doing something a little bit different than normal. I'm using the Boom hand replayer that is partnered with PokerStars, and it's pretty easy to share hands if you guys play on PokerStars too, and just put them out on Twitter and Facebook, things like that. And the replayer is just really nice. It looks exactly like you're playing on PokerStars, so it's a lot of fun. So into the action, you guys can see that the preflop raiser check raises us here, and we would put his range normally on a mix of good made hands, maybe something like queens and better, a few draws, and just a couple of pure bluffs as well. So now we're trying to figure out how to continue against that range, what hands do best to play what way, things like that. So the real options that we have here, of course, after we bet, are to fold, call, or raise. And folding, we would want to do, with just our terrible hands, hands that don't have enough equity against the range that I mentioned, regardless of how, what proportions of different parts of that range are check raising us here. So, if he has a very strong check raising range and one without a lot of draws, we might continue with a few more draws, even like a gut shot. If he's very draw heavy, then we can continue and actually bet more weak made hands when check to. So, even something like King 9 we might be comfortable betting when check to, if we're considering how to continue against a check raise here. Then to raise, which is kind of the point of this video, we want to have a hand that is either a bluff or that does pretty well against an all-in. And now I think what's going to happen in pretty much all cases is the check raiser's range is so polarized that he's either going to be folding to our flop 3-bet or moving all in. So what we can do here is actually pretty neat. We can just make a small re-raise and effectively make him risk his entire stack. So we can make it something along the lines of $60, and it's going to put him in a very, very difficult spot with his bluffs, which that way we get to cut down his bluffing range quite a bit if he's never just shoving with a bluff. That may not be the case. He might have some weak draws like King Queen that he's check raising here, and then he might have some strong draws like Ace 10 of spades that he's going to be moving all in with over a flop 3-bet. So you need to consider how the flop check raising range is constructed. Some people might just be doing this with like 5, 6 of hearts in the small blinds shoes. So if that's the case, the small flop 3-bet plays very well. On the other hand, we could just shove over this. So if you're trying to figure out what's going to work best, shoving or making a small 3-bet, you can consider how likely it is that you have a hand to 3-bet small on the flop and then take the heat of the shove. And the more polarized this bet is, I think the more that a small 3-bet makes sense. Like I said, we can do a good job of attacking a very polarized check raising range. Now, if we're trying to work in a lot of bluffs and we have a small flop 3-bet, then we get shoved on by a lot of made hands and a mixture of weaker and stronger draws. The small 3-bet might not play out as well because we're not going to have enough hands to continue against a wider value range. So you guys can think about the pros and cons there. With this hand, I think I would be 3-betting the flop just because if we ever get it in against a draw, we have a dominating draw. So if he has the ace high flush draw, we have more equity than he does. That's great. If somehow he has king queen or queen 10, then we have him crushed, and that's awesome. And it really just no matter how we get the money in, we're actually just racing against top pair and one overcard to the board that isn't a queen. So we're looking good there as well. The only thing we're really worried about is pocket fours and pocket jacks. And a lot of the time people really won't check raise pocket jacks on this board just because it doesn't really make sense to try to get more money from a lot of our range since we're not going to have top pair really ever. it's very difficult for him to assume that we have a very wide value range to bet when check 2 here, because most of those hands are going to be stuff like Jack 10 offsuit. So to check raise pocket jacks, maybe we can discount it just a little bit. Additionally, it's just a very rare hand for him to have. So we're certainly assuming that we're going to see weaker draws, ace-high flush draws, things like that, instead of a set much more often. And really anything else we have great equity against. So I think flop 3-bet is the way to go here. And if we were to call, I would probably do that with some weaker flush draws. Maybe even like a king-high flush draw every once in a while. And weaker made hands like a jack. And that way, we're not really worried about a spade rolling off because we know we'll have enough flush draws in our range. So we're not just 3-betting every flush draw on the flop, even though we are 3-betting this one because it's a special kind of flush draw. We already have a pair and we beat pretty much every other draw and a lot of made hands that try to get it in here. So let me know what you guys think about constructing your flop 3-betting range on a draw heavy board like this, and how you think your opponent's check raising range should factor into that. And if you guys could hit that like button and share this with just one poker buddy, that really helps us grow a lot. And thank you guys so much for the support so far. It's awesome to see this channel growing. We're almost up to 700 people, so just awesome. Awesome work, guys. I will see you next time.